Welcome to the show. I'm Jason Whitlock. Coming up, I'll tell you why the Baker Mayfield experiment is off to a rocky start in Cleveland.
And I'm Colin Cowherd. Cam Newton got heckled by some kids, and you know what? I like how he handled it. Speak for yourself starts now. Kids can be jerks.
Kids were jerks. We'll get into that shortly. All right, looking forward to this show. I look damn good. Hello and welcome. Joining us today are Fox football analyst Mark Schlereth and Tony Gonzalez. Let's start with the NFL. Some controversy in Atlanta, where Falcons star receiver Julio Jones skipped the team's entire offseason program because he reportedly wants an adjustment to his contract. Adding to the intrigue, Julio has been working out with Terrell Owens, who most recently announced he would skip his own Hall of Fame ceremony for what appears to be spite. Needless to say, Atlanta feels uneasy about the Julio-T.O. relationship. Cowherd, do you sympathize with the Falcons here?
Yeah, I mean, because players like and respect T.O. GMs don't, and coaches don't, and maybe owners don't. But players, especially perimeter players, they look up to T.O. and they think Hall of Famer, top 5 player. And they have personalities, and he had a personality. So we're, interior lineman, respected tight end who had to block, journalist, whatever am I. We look at T.O. and think, crazy person. But Julio Jones is like, come on, man. I hope I wear a gold jacket. So I think T.O. has some ability here to manipulate Julio.
I think that Julio's smarter than that. I think he sees T.O. as a tool and as a message to the Atlanta Falcons. Julio Jones' reputation has been he's in that Larry Fitzgerald lane. Reliable, just shows up, performs. Now that he wants money, he doesn't want to be seen as a Larry Fitzgerald guy. He wants to be seen as a little bit, you know what, I'm crazy enough to sit out the entire season. I'm crazy enough to be a headache for you all if you don't get this money right. And so if I'm the Falcons, I'm a bit concerned. And if I'm Julio Jones, I think he's chosen a pretty smart and savvy tactic here in terms of squeezing some more dollars out of the Atlanta Falcons.
Well, I'm 100% with you on who Julio Jones is, because I called the game of theirs last year. The players love him. The guy's a hard worker. The guy leads through example. The guys that he plays with at the receiving corps absolutely gravitate to him. The team gravitates to him. And he is one of the top players in this league without question. What recourse do you have if you're a player? If you outperform your contract, right, what recourse do you have other than to threaten to sit out or, to go work out somewhere else and just not show up? You don't have any other recourse. I guarantee you, if he underperformed his contract right now in 2 years, they would cut his money. And I've had that happen to me. I started a game on Sunday. They called me up to the office on Friday and said, if you don't take this pay cut, we're going to release you after you start the game. And guess what? Every roster in the NFL is full. That's how we get dealt with as players. I have no issue because there's one player in this league that plays that position that should be paid as highly as him, and that's Antonio Brown. And then it's Antonio Brown and Julio Jones. You can argue with who's number one. I'll go Julio Jones because he's a big body. But after that, you can argue the rest of how they slot after that. But there's no argument. Those are the two best players in this league at that position.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, and I think he's playing this beautifully. I really agree with what you said there. Maybe he's sending a little bit of a message to the organization because they know how he is, and I've kind of was branded that too. I kind of feel, obviously I played with Julio. I know pretty much how he thinks, at least back then. He is a team-first guy. He doesn't want to rock the boat. He's going to show up and work his butt off. He's going to go perform. He's consistent. It's everything that greatness that you would want in a player. And I think sometimes you have to send a message. And I've held out of camp, too. I've missed the whole offseason workout program over a contract dispute. Him being around T.O., it's two things. He's playing with somebody who's got a gold jacket, greatness. You can never go wrong being around greatness. His mind is too strong, trust me, to let any type of shenanigans or T.O.isms rub off on him. But it's also sending a message to that team that, look, I'm with T.O. right now, and I am listening to him. There is wisdom behind T.O., whether you like it or not. He's got some wisdom there, and he can learn something from
good
us.
People can be swayed. When you were playing, you were a hard worker. You got into a Rodman thing where Rodman was fun, and Rodman's intentions weren't always the work ethic. Didn't he sway you maybe a little?
Well, it certainly had a lot more fun. Going to Vegas and Miami. He showed me that side of it too. It kind of, that's why I say, I don't care what you think about T.O. or anybody else. If you can be around greatness and pick their brain, because T.O.'s got some good stuff. There's no doubt about that. He's a Hall of Famer. Then you can apply that to your game, whether also, too, like learning how to deal with an organization. I guarantee you Julio's going to get a new contract before it's all said and done because they need him on that football field.
No one's ever questioned T.O.'s work ethic. And so Julio Jones working out with one of the hardest workers I think we've ever seen in football doesn't raise a red flag. But Julio Jones talking to T.O. every day, and T.O. going, man, they gave Matt Ryan $100 million in guaranteed money this offseason. And Julio Jones is smart enough to know Matt Ryan's really good, but without me, is he worth $100 million? So they're about to burn up the $100 million they spent on Matt Ryan. If they don't have a happy, productive Julio Jones, they might as well set that money on fire.
Solution: 3-year guaranteed contracts. Solved. After 3 years, you outperform your contract, you get a new one. You get hurt, you're on the hook. You're on the hook.
Hi, I'm Alexi Lawless. I used to play soccer back in the 1900s for the U.S. Now you can find me talking about soccer this summer during the World Cup on Fox. Now through July 15th, you can get daily FIFA World Cup updates from me through your Alexa-enabled device. Just say, Alexa, play the Fox Sports Flash Briefing, and you'll get the latest tournament news straight from Russia. Alexa and Alexi. Now that's a winning team. Don't forget to watch the 2018 FIFA World Cup all tournament long live on Fox and FS1.
Also in the NFC South, been an eventful offseason for the Panthers star quarterback Cam Newton. Has a new offensive coordinator in Norv Turner, who's hoping to return Cam to his MVP form. In the meantime, Cam spent the weekend at a 7-on-7 camp in Florida where he was heckled by some kids for his infamous fumble in the Panthers Super Bowl loss to the Broncos. Take a listen.
Cam. Stop playing off. You do what? Oh, no. What happened to the Super Bowl? Super Bowl. Cam. Stop playing off. You do what? Oh, no. What happened to the Super Bowl? Super Bowl.
All right, Whitlock, you like how Cam handled those kids?
Yeah, I have no problem with how Cam handled it. I'm disappointed in those kids. They're trolling a person who's there to help them, who's there to provide some inspiration, some leadership, pass on his knowledge. And we've created such a youth culture that the only thing some kids can think to do is whip out their phones and troll this guy when he's there to help them. This makes me sad, to be quite honest with you. I don't have a problem with Cam Newton, who's, I'm sure, I don't think he's being paid to be there. He's there to help some kids, and they're trolling him. I don't get this, and no, I don't have any problem with what Cam did. I have a problem with whoever, if I was the parent of that child that seemed to be the leader of the heckling, that child would have a real problem with me.
Yeah, I mean, kids can be jerks. I mean, you see it on social media. When I was a kid growing up and I watched Johnny Carson or David Letterman, I couldn't connect with them. But a kid now can connect with Jay-Z on Twitter in 2 seconds and call him out. That's the culture we live in. Like, that's like a badge of honor now. Oh, I went after blank. I went after blank. There used to be a gap between celebrity and public. Now, just go on Twitter. I can talk to the president. He may talk to me back. I think that's just the world we live in. It's trolling, it's trash talking. Can you handle it? And the kids were kind of jerky. Tony talked me out of it. At first I thought, Cam, grow up. And then I thought, you know what? This is the world we live in. Everybody's a troll. Everybody's a troll. Our president's a troll. Everybody's a troll.
Welcome to the land of trolls. I love it. Like I said earlier on your show, I wish my mom was sitting right here because she's, black woman. This is old school stuff right here. Like I said, don't poke the bear. If you're sitting there, like you said, you're at a camp and he's helping you, and you're going to talk trash to the man, then be prepared to see what happens. Now, I told you, I have a son. I have 4 kids. I have a son who's an 8-year-old, a little overconfident. I could see him maybe doing something like this. And I would give all the permission in the world. You go ahead, you get right in my son's face and say something. Teach him some respect. teach them some respect. This is just ridiculous. And anybody that has a problem with this is not from the old school, put it that way. Because this stuff is, to me, I think Cam did the right. Now, I don't know if I would have cussed at the kid. I definitely would have took him outside and been like, hey, come on.
That's where I would draw the line, is that you're in a position of authority, you're in a position of leadership, and cussing at the kid is not the appropriate reaction. For me, I always have to look at myself, and I have to look at anybody else, like as a player or as a celebrity, as an analyst. You know, I go by the rule of wolves don't concern themselves with the opinion of sheep. And you got to be able to take that stuff and be like, whatever. Now, if you want to get after the kid and you know, have a little fun with him, yeah. But to cuss him out or to cuss at him, I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think that's the message that you want to send. So that's where I would draw the line. If you want to go back at him a little bit and have some fun, a little lighthearted banter, I'm okay with that. But when you cuss at the kid, I don't think that's appropriate. Now, that being said, let me just tell you this. I have called my son, who is a professional athlete, but even when he was in college, I have called my son and said, and showed him or talked about somebody who acted, a celebrity or an athlete who acted inappropriately. And I let my son know that if you ever act like that, if you become a professional athlete, I will be on the next flight, wherever you happen to be, and I'll whoop your ass. I just want you to know that. And I've had that conversation with him, and he was like, I'd never act like that. Well, you shouldn't act like that. So there needs to be some parenting there as well.
I guess, literally, this virtually makes me emotional because I think of myself as a kid, and I was just a hardcore football and sports fan. And James Harris was one of my first idols, first black quarterback for the Los Angeles Rams. And I just couldn't imagine being anywhere as a kid where I wouldn't be in awe of James Harris and just be like, oh, my God, I can't believe I'm standing this close to James Harris, and he's actually showing me how to play football. I just don't know where we've gone as a culture to where Cam Newton shows up. And, again, Cam's made some mistakes and all that, and that's for the media to handle. But where a kid would think, another kid, let me whip out my phone, and I got a Snapchat moment where I'm harassing Cam Newton, that just blows my mind.
But we don't know, because Cam's pretty playful. I mean, Cam's a pretty big personality. Cam could have 5 minutes before that been having fun with the kids and trash talking them, and then we see this video and we're like, whoa. The environment seemed to me to be pretty playful. And then Cam turns around and gets in their face. We're only getting like 11 seconds of that clip. There could have been a 5-minute jovial session that Cam provoked earlier.
I like your point, and there's some relevancy to it. Looking at the 11 seconds we are seeing, though, I'm hearing a bunch of kids shouting in the background. Tell us about that fumble in the Super Bowl and all that other stuff. I just can't, I couldn't fathom it. I criticize athletes for a living now, but the great ones, and, you know, I guess there's a debate about how great Cam is, but I don't know. It makes me sad.
All right, welcome back. Now joining us, Fox soccer analyst here, former U.S. national team star Kobe Jones, and the founder of the Big Lead, Jason McIntyre. Let's talk some World Cup. Boy, the group stage has been fun. Landon Donovan felt the need to defend himself after taking heat from some U.S. soccer players, including Kobe here, along with some supporters for urging Americans to root for rival Mexico at the World Cup as part of the new endorsement deal. Donovan said he bleeds red, white, and blue, but played in Mexico and feels a strong connection to the country. Whitlock, you have an issue with Landon Donovan rooting for Mexico.
Not at all. And I don't get this controversy at all. Honest to goodness, who are we supposed to root for? Canada's not in the World Cup. Look, I thought Donovan's explanation made perfect sense. He played in Mexico. If you're from here in Los Angeles, I'm sure he's competed against great Mexican athletes. He's been influenced by the Mexican culture. And the Mexicans actually have the most passion for soccer, even more than American fans. I don't get where Kobe Jones and these other guys are coming from.
Listen,
who the hell are we supposed to root for?
Well,
We're not in it.
Well, I'm an employee of Fox. I think it's safe to say we're rooting for Mexico because we're not in it. They're good for our ratings. Now, I never played, so I get Alabama football players saying, I can't like Auburn. But as a citizen, I see Mexico as an ally, and as a broadcaster at a network that has the World Cup, if you ask me, who do we want to do well? I'd say Mexico, maybe England, maybe, I don't know, who else? Brazil? To me, Mexico's one of the teams I've put my arms around.
I think you're touching on it. I think you're touching on the fact that it's what Landon represents. And we're talking about, everyone could argue that Landon is probably the most accomplished American soccer player that there is. So he represents the U.S. national team. And when he goes out and he says, okay, I'm rooting for Mexico, he puts on the jersey, it hits people the wrong way. It rubs people the wrong way, where it's like, okay, well, we're not there. People are still hurting that the U.S. isn't there. And then they see, okay, well, cheer for our arch rival.
How's that Mexico's fault?
It's not Mexico's fault. I think that's why you see most of the people, look, I don't have a thing against Mexico per se, but I will not root for them. Don't ask me to root for them because they're my rival. I've been in the trenches against that team. Look, if he had said Costa Rica or some of the other teams within CONCACAF, I would have been fine for that. But they're my arch rivals. I've gone to war against this Mexican team, against El Tri on the field. So it's difficult for me personally to say, okay, I'm going to root for Mexico. That's what I'm trying to get across.
Yeah.
And see, that's where the big divide is. He is a former player. We are outsiders. As a player, yeah, you hated Mexico going
Landon
into the
Donovan's
stadiums
a
there.
player.
Yeah, well, Landon Donovan's getting paid a lot of money to promote Mexico here, and I can understand where he's coming from. And I run a website and we do a lot of posts on U.S. soccer leading up to the World Cup. You can't post on U.S. soccer now because they're not a story, but when we post on Mexico, we're seeing some traction. People know Mexican players from the MLS, so I don't think as many fans and outsiders care as much about this as players such as yourself and Carlos.
By the way, one of the things I actually like about your stance is when I watch the World Cup, I think sometimes Team USA, this recent team, there was a sense of entitlement and arrogance, and it drove me crazy. We played Trinidad and Tobago like we didn't care. Yeah. I'm watching Japan. I'm watching Russia. I'm seeing this all in. And I kind of like my USA players saying, let me tell you, this is visceral. I can't root for Mexico. I wish sometimes United States men's national team members all thought like that. Because remember, he's an athlete. I'm just a citizen. It would look worse if I was anti-Mexico. Shouldn't our players feel this way to some degree?
I mean no disrespect by this, and keep in mind I'm a soccer novice. I wish they were passionate about playing better on an international stage, more than hating Mexico. Yeah. And I know very little about soccer or whatever, but I think that the animosity towards Mexico is misguided. We as Americans and as American players, fans, whatever, we're the most powerful country in the world, and we don't have a great soccer program, and that's on us. And so I wish the energy and emotion was focused on that as much as it seems to be about Landon Donovan rooting. I wish the passion was about, man, why are we not in this World Cup, and why are we not one of the best teams, the most powerful teams? We have all the resources, and, to me, some of it just sounds petty and jealous of Mexico, a country that is not our equal, but they're in the world stage.
Wait. That's part of it. That's part of it. We are upset that we are not there. So we do not want to jump on the bandwagon of, okay, we're Mexico now. That's it. I cannot say, okay, El Tri, you're my team now. Look, part of it is also wanting to be the better side, wanting the U.S. soccer to get better. I love the fact that in the last time that I was in the World Cup, that I was part of the team that beat Mexico 2-0, and I still have those bragging rights. But I still call up like Jorge Campos, great Mexican national team players. We're good friends, but I always got the little wink, hey, we beat you, in the World Cup. That's something that's part of the passion between these two countries when they meet on the field. And that's why it's important with what Landon Donovan represents, that people are taking it to heart, that it's like, wait a second, you're like the representation in this era of U.S. soccer, and now you're cheering for our biggest rival.
But, Kobe, everybody knows if the U.S. were here in the tournament, Landon Donovan wouldn't be rooting for Mexico in any way, shape, or form.
Do they?
Sure. It would be all you. I think the fans have to know that,
I would
right?
hope so.
Yeah, it's just a paid advertisement thing. I think if the U.S. were here, nobody would even be talking about Mexico, at least here for the U.S. It'd be all about what's going on with the team and can we win it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you with that 100%. And that goes back to what you're talking about is it all comes down to the U.S. has to get better, over these next 4 years and get a result and make sure that we are in, this next World Cup. I know a lot of us are looking, to 2026. Let's make sure we make this next one.
All right, welcome back. We're joined now by Fox NBA analyst Jim Jackson and Chris Broussard. All right, let's talk about shoes. Puma is relaunching its long-defunct basketball sneaker category, signing projected lottery picks DeAndre Ayton and Marvin Bagley to multi-year deals. The company also announced that rapper and business mogul Jay-Z will serve as creative director for Puma basketball. Jay-Z has previously owned a stake in the Brooklyn Nets, about a half of a percent, and still oversees Roc Nation Sports, an agency that represents Kevin Durant. Colin, will Jay-Z lead Puma to NBA relevance?
Yeah, he's iconic. I mean, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, what do they got on the headset? A lot of them grew up with Jay-Z. I think he is Uber to the taxi game. He's a complete disruptor. Is that if I'm an agent and Jay-Z walks in, and I got Marvin Bagley, who's cool? It's what Magic Johnson, by the way. If Daryl Morey and Magic Johnson walk into a room, who's LeBron want to talk to? He wants to talk to Magic Johnson. I think Jay-Z is a disruptor. I think he's Uber. He's Amazon in retail. And I think it's a scary. If you're an agency, it's scary.
I think he'll help them land some players. But I think where I think this is misguided is there's this belief that somehow rap and hip-hop is the way to sell tennis shoes. And it's just not true. I don't think it's been true since Run DMC and my Adidas. The way to sell tennis shoes is through greatness on the basketball court from a player who crosses all demographics. Nobody sold shoes like Michael Jordan. And no one will ever sell shoes again like Michael Jordan because none of them want to follow Michael Jordan's blueprint in terms of being acceptable in every American home and just being excellent. And so we just keep thinking the NBA has swallowed the whole rap, hip-hop, and the shoe companies have followed in behind it, and it just doesn't lead to the kind of success that people think it does.
But see, I think the NBA's embrace of hip-hop culture is one of the things that's sparked it to be so popular now. I think that's why
Less
it's
popular
past
than the
baseball.
Jordan era.
I don't think it's less popular than the Jordan era. Overall, the NBA, I mean,
Less
you only
popular
had
than
3
the Jordan
channels
era?
and 20 cable stations back then. I mean, but that's neither here nor there. The question about Jay-Z, no, I hope I'm wrong, but no, he's not going to resurrect Puma. Not at all, because number one, Jay-Z was even bigger when he was with Reebok. He had a sneaker with Reebok, and it didn't do anything on the court or off the court. And that's when they had Allen Iverson as well. Number two, big men don't sell sneakers. You got DeAndre Ayton, Marvin Bagley. Remember Patrick Ewing with the Ewings were fresh. Shaq,
David Robinson,
Hakeem. The Tonics was nice, but they never sold.
And that's what I was going to say. I was going to say that.
Dwight Howard, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Big men have a problem selling shoes because, you know why? I can't aspire and grow up and say I want to be 7 foot. I want to be Shaquille. That's why in China, the most popular athlete at one time, it wasn't Yao Ming, it was Allen Iverson.
Yep.
Because they can relate to that. I think it's from a business perspective, Puma has always had great casual gear, urban gear.
Exactly. That's
so
what
if you really want to tie the cultures together and get NBA players, I think the business aspect of it has to be on the court shoe, but lifestyle, a lifestyle brand. That's what Adidas sells. Adidas sells lifestyle. Yeah. So if I'm bringing in a Jay-Z and I want to connect the hip-hop world with NBA, it's not going to be so much I'm selling the shoe, more so than I'm selling the lifestyle and the brand of Puma. And now you got it all encompassed. It's not just basketball. It's skate shoes. It's casual shoes. It's wear. It's hats. It's everything. Now I think Jay-Z's impact can be a lot bigger.
Look, Puma had Vince Carter in 98.
For a short time.
2 years.
For 2 years.
But Vince was as graceful an athlete as you'll ever see. Obviously, one of the greatest dunkers ever. And he couldn't sell. And look, Nike's got the NBA on lock. It's as simple as that. Here's the news to anybody.
Jordan has the NBA on lock.
Well, Jordan is the one that's when Nike took over. You remember Pony and Puma back in the day, Converse.
Got him out the way.
He had it on lock. Look, and one had all the street cred in the world with the mixtapes. They had dozens of NBA players wearing them. And the shoes looked pretty good. And they couldn't sell.
They couldn't sell.
You can't.
You're
Nike's
making
got
my
it on
point,
lock.
Chris.
No, I agree with you. It's not because of hip hop or anything. I just don't think anyone can crack what Nike has in the NBA.
Because no one, and we'll get into this probably later in the week, because no one wants to follow Jordan's path. This is where I question LeBron James just as a businessman. If he had stayed a little less hip-hop, he could have kept all of his street credibility, he could have kept all of his urban credibility, but a few less tattoos and just play it down the middle of the road the way Jordan did, I think he could have surpassed Jordan as a shoe seller. But no one wants to be in that lane. Everybody thinks you got to go way too urban in order to sell. What?
Steph's not urban or anything like that. No, very few tattoos.
Steph's not LeBron. Steph's not Jordan.
Doesn't
Steph's cute.
Well, he said the nurse. Yeah, he had to nurse you, but think about the timing. Think about the timing of Jordan when he came in.
Exactly.
It's all timing. Because when he came in, it was all about. I mean, he kind of captured the world by storm. So when Nike put that whole program together behind Air Jordan, this was new, it was unique, It was something totally different. What we're seeing now, you tell me something that's unique and new about the shoes that's coming out, that draw you to it. You got kids right now who never saw Michael Jordan play, but yet and still, the aura around Michael Jordan, the shoes still sell. So I think a lot of it had to do with the timing in which Michael came into the league, and that whole promotion part of it is so different.
I think he was the first official
What I got on?
signature shoe, right?
Just look at this guy's shoe.
He got on there Adidas.
Oh, I got Adidas
that's
too.
where,
That's
where
classic.
Puma should go.
That's classic.
That's what
It's
Puma
lifestyle.
can do. They can
It's
hit the
lifestyle.
lifestyle.
To Oklahoma City, where Stephen A. Smith reports the Thunder are prepared to offer big money to keep impending free agent Paul George. OKC had high hopes for its PG-13 Russell Westbrook tandem ever since trading for the former Pacer last summer. But after a first-round playoff exit, looks like money may be the only factor keeping George from bolting to L.A. Whitlock, would it be a mistake for the OKC Thunder to back up the Brinks truck for Paul George?
Yeah, big mistake. I just don't. He's not a max contract guy to me based off of what we saw this year. I would not back up the Brinks truck for Paul George. I think he and Russell Westbrook are a bad fit together. I don't think it's a winning championship fit. You back up the Brinks truck to me about championships. And I just don't see that combination winning championships. I guess if you're OKC, you have no choice. Who else would play there? And so maybe you have no choice, but I wouldn't do it.
Oh, I think I've never disagreed with you more on this show. Listen, man.
You want someone to play with Russell Westbrook, to attach their career to Russell Westbrook.
No, what I'm saying is I'm defending Westbrook.
What?
What?
Really? Are you something wrong?
If Paul George bails on Westbrook, his brand is done. He is super flake.
Who's done? Westbrook is done?
Who in the world is going to play with Westbrook? Listen, I can criticize Westbrook all I want. He is fun to talk about. He is fun to talk about.
So you back up the Brinks truck.
For Paul George and OKC, let me tell you something. Do you understand what's happening here? Harden left, Durant left. This is the last hope.
But Harden didn't leave because of Westbrook.
Whatever. If Paul George leaves,
Gotcha.
they'll never get another player. And by the way, Westbrook, who is one of the most fascinating topics in our business, becomes kind of like crazy Westbrook in the middle of nowhere.
Let me ask you this, Jason. How'd you feel about the Reggie Miller era in Indiana?
Loved it.
Loved it. Did you win a championship?
Loved it.
Did you
It
win
was
a championship?
awesome. What?
Did you win a championship?
No, but we played in the finals.
Won finals. Okay. My point is this. It's not, you want to win a championship, yes. But more importantly, you want to be relevant. You want to be in the playoffs.
Yes.
And if are they going to win a championship with George and Westbrook? No. But they could be a second round, maybe on the fringes of a conference finalist.
Hey, we talk about them
They'll
nonstop.
be relevant. They got two, not only stars, but like interesting stars, exciting players. And it's Oklahoma City. You're going to put butts in the seats. They're not going to win a championship, but yeah, they should do it.
But also, too, Jason, you got to keep in mind, how many really max players are there in the league?
4.
Thank you. But
If that's what you define it as,
because you're going to end up overpaying guys to keep
I'd
them.
rather pay Boogie Cousins.
You'd rather pay Boogie Cousins.
Oh.
He has never made the playoffs in his life.
Coming off an injury, coming off the attitude stuff, I trust Paul George from this perspective. I know he's going to bring it. Is he my optimal number 1A guy? No. But like Chris said, and also with the league, OKC has issues with this. Free agents are not going to come down there like Cleveland. So either we build through the draft or retain the free agents that we have. So they got to throw the boat at Paul George to see what he wants to do.
If Paul George takes a max deal from OKC after abandoning Indiana, it's going to irritate me. He left Indiana. He left Indiana to go to LA, but now you're going to sign a max deal in OKC. You can't tell me he wouldn't have been better off staying in Indiana.
So you mad because he thinks Oklahoma City's a better city than your hometown.
He'd be better off going back to Indiana and playing with Oladipo.
You don't want
if he played with Oladipo, that would be better than playing with Westbrook, and he'd have a better chance
they'd be in the East. I do agree. They'd be in the East.
I told you I like him in Philly. I like him in Philly.
You have to overpay for a pool in Phoenix. Okay? They're going to gouge you. It's 170 in the summer. Okay, in OKC, you got to pay a B-plus guy like an A-plus guy. That's just the reality of it.
Here's the thing. Everybody would pay Paul. I mean, he's not the number one diamond, but you know how many guys are max guys that aren't? Victor Oladipo's going to get the max.
Yeah.
John Wall's got the max. Bradley Beal's going to get the max. If you're an all-star, you're going to get the max. Why? What's he going to lead you to? Second round?
We almost beat Cleveland.
Almost. Exactly. The Lakers will give Paul George the max.
But my thing, too, with OKC is they're still in the situation. I think they got to address the Paul George issue, but also, to me, and I talked to you about this, about the Carmelo issue, okay? I think what's important here is that we always talk about Carmelo and what's going to happen. I say from a leverage perspective, OKC has to go to Melo and say, listen, you want to opt in? You're coming off the bench. Put the onus on Carmelo to make a decision because he's not getting $28 million out on the market. Now you can at least handle that part of it while you're still trying to figure out what you're going to do with Paul George.
Yep. Look, I'm with you, though. Paul George, he should be looking at Philadelphia.
I'm telling you.
That's where he should be
To me, that is the perfect spot.
Or Indiana with Oladipo.
Welcome back, Mark Schlereth, Tony Gonzalez here. Here we go. Let's return to the NFL and talk about the Browns, where Cleveland.com is reporting Baker Mayfield did not look ready to compete with Tyrod Taylor, compete with him for the starting job during OTAs and minicamp. Baker was the number 1 overall pick, but new offensive coordinator Todd Haley said last week former Heisman Trophy winner has a long way to go. Head coach Hugh Jackson has already said Tyrod will be the starter. Whitlock, are these some early signs the Browns reach for Baker Mayfield at the number 1 pick?
I don't think it's a great sign, but I'm not going to overreact that a rookie isn't ready to beat out an experienced veteran in minicamp and OTAs, not ready to compete. And then also I think that Hugh Jackson needs to win 6 or 7 games this year to keep his job. And I don't think he wants to try to do that with a rookie quarterback. And so some of this may be rigged up in terms of, I think Hugh wants to go with the veteran quarterback, and Baker may not be in position to look the greatest early on.
Yeah, when it says not ready to compete, that's a jab, and that obviously came from inside the organization. So to your point, there's a reason stories get leaked, okay? And to me, this is the coaching staff, the offensive side of the football. Haley was critical. Now we have a leak. This is Todd Haley and Hugh Jackson saying, I want to have a job in 12 months. That's what it feels like to me.
Young guys get you fired, and you are on a razor-thin wire if you're Hugh Jackson, right? So I'm with you. You've got to give every opportunity for your team to actually kind of rectify this, 1 in 31 they've had the last 2 years. We knew this coming in. When you come in from a spread system, everybody raved about the completion percentage. Well, you come out of that system and you throw 6 bubble screens, and a couple of swing passes and a couple of middle screens. You're 15 for 15 when you walk on the field.
Yeah.
Now you just got to complete 50% of your other passes, and you're gonna be fine. So there is a big difference between playing in that completely spread system where you're looking at cards and you've got one route, kind of a one-route tree, and everybody just plays back because you play so fast. Everybody plays a zone defense, and nobody changes anything up. There was going to be a learning curve here, and we saw it in the second half of the game against Georgia when they went to man-free and basically said, now what? And he was woefully inadequate in the second half of that game because there's a learning curve. Now, I watched him come up in the pre-draft, and he's exceptional from the pocket. He's a much better, to compare him to Manziel is not fair because He's a much better player than Manziel. But still, there's a lot to learn here when you get to the next level.
Absolutely, and at the quarterback position, I couldn't fathom it. I mean, the stuff that they have to remember, and a guy like Todd Haley, who's been around for a long time, we know what went on with him and Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger basically got him out of there. I think, meaning that this stuff is complicated. There is a lot that goes into it, and Tyrod Taylor has the experience. And they're not going to hitch their wagon to a young quarterback. Everything that you guys are saying right there. And I wouldn't do it either. If I'm Hugh Jackson, there is no way I would start Baker Mayfield the first game of the season, especially what's going on. Otherwise, put it in the cap. If he does that, he is going to get fired this year because they have to win football games this year.
I worry about Baker Mayfield drafted into that environment, number one, with Hugh on a thread. Look, Hugh has a big ego. Todd Haley has an equally big ego. And just a young quarterback walking into that QB room with two of the biggest egos in the NFL, two guys that think of themselves as inventing offensive football in the NFL. And I know that's true of a lot of coaches in the NFL, but I know Todd Haley quite well, watched his work up close in Kansas City. And, you know, I used to nickname Hugh Hubris Jackson. And so I just think he's walked into a tough spot. I'm not going to overreact and say the kid can't play. It's OTAs and minicamp. He shouldn't look as good as some veteran quarterback.
I think back to your original point, though. Todd Haley and this story leaked in a week, came out in a week. It feels like a plan. That staff, they want to win 7 games. They're not winning it with Baker.
All right, elsewhere in the NFL, many have wondered how Eagles defensive end Michael Bennett would handle the league's new anthem policy, which requires players to stand on the field during the national anthem. Or stay in the locker room. Bennett previously sat in protest, but he told the Seattle Times that it isn't about the gesture anymore, adding, quote, "We don't have to take a knee, we just have to work in our communities." Cowherd, is this a sign the players are backing away from the protest?
I don't think it's a sign they're backing away. I think it's a sign players are moving toward the owners and the teams realizing, oh yeah, we're business partners. I don't feel like it's a submitting, whoa, you won. I feel it's like, well, the teams have shown they're willing to help us. Let's conjoin here and work together, which I think that was your original point a year ago.
2 years ago.
I don't think Bennett is showing weakness. To me, I think what Bennett is showing is strength. Like, we made a point, we made people uncomfortable, owners step forward, it's our turn to step forward. I always felt the Eagles did it the right way.
I'm not going to give him that much credit. I will credit him for finally moving to a place of maturity, and perhaps information creeped into his Twitter feed or whatever influences him, that he's actually made a rational decision, because he's now saying what I've been saying from the get-go. He used the word gesture, and that's all this has ever been, is a gesture. And he used the words, we need to work in our community. That's what really matters. Anybody with any maturity has been saying that forever. The gesture and causing all this controversy isn't effective. It started a conversation about the national anthem. What's effective is working in your community. I'll credit him for that. Whether he looks weak or not or whatever, I'll just credit him for having some common sense, and they need to get down to business, and in their spare time, away from work, need to work in their communities.
And he does that, and a lot of guys do that in the NFL. A lot of guys have sacrificed and made those moves to make their communities better. The bigger issue that I have is the NFL and the Players Association and the marriage that's dysfunctional. And a lot of people think, I'm going to give you a marriage lesson here, because I've been married almost 30 years, and this is for you. Marriage is not a 50-50 proposition. It's a 100-100 proposition. If you're not willing to give 100% of yourself, you're going to fail at marriage. And this league is so concerned, both the Players Association and the league, about being right and not doing what's right. And that's their biggest issue. And until they start to come together and actually collaborate on this, I think it was Adam Silver, the NBA, that said, the players run the league, the owners just think they run it, right? I mean, so until they come together and understand, and I think this is a move toward that, guys, what we're doing is we're hurting our business. We're hurting our bottom line. We're not hurting the owners, and we're not just hurting ourselves. We're hurting our collective ability. And this league is under so much scrutiny with concussion issues and everything else. What we're doing is we're taking money out of our own pockets. And so let's consider how to work together on this thing and make this union a lot better than it's been here in the last, I don't know, half a decade or so.
I agree, and I think the term it's jumped the shark, the taking a knee. To me, now this is just my opinion.
Ice bucket challenge is what it was.
Yeah, and you're right, and it created a conversation. Don't tell me that it didn't bring awareness to police violence, to race, to whatever they were going for. It opened up a conversation, and Colin Kaepernick is at the center of that. I don't care what anybody says. But I think now at this point, it's starting to lose money, starting to turn people off. Let's move on to something else. And I think that's what the players are starting to recognize. And it doesn't mean that you can't protest anymore. You can protest after you score a touchdown. You can protest after you have 2 interceptions in the game. When you're getting interviewed after the game, you then say something if you want. I just think they need to look for more creative ways to come up with something. I think the players are really starting to realize that because right now it's just, even me, I'm like, there they go again. It's nothing new. You got to keep it fresh.
What is the split between owners and players in this league? 51-49, 53, whatever it is?
Yeah.
It's a split. They're in business together. It's not 90-10. You're hurting your own wallet if you think enemy, good guys.
And the other issue is it's been hijacked by special interest groups. What you tried to do, and you did a great job of creating awareness, but then everybody else gloms onto it and takes it, runs with it on their. They had no.
We gotta go.
Yeah, they had no skin in the game. No skin in the game.
We gotta go. All right, welcome back. Time for last call. The latest Madden video game ranks Aaron Rodgers as the top quarterback, with the reigning league MVP, 40-year-old Tom Brady, coming in second. Colin, is it disrespectful to Brady that he's behind Rodgers?
Rodgers is the better arm, the better athlete. Who would I rather play with is different than who's the better quarterback athlete. So I think if you ask players, they'd take Brady. Computers would take Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers is more talented than Tom Brady, and that's what the Madden rating reflects, who's most talented. Doesn't reflect who's the best. All right, this is a story I can't wait for. Terrell Owens thinks he can still play in the NFL, and if you believe what the stopwatch says, he may have a real shot. During his training with Falcon star Julio Jones, T.O. reportedly ran a 4.43 40-yard dash. Cowherd, you buying these two stopwatches, 4.43 and 4.44?
I am, are you?
No, I'm not. They two handheld. The guy ran a 4.6 at his combine. He's faster now at 44 than he was at 21 or 22.
You just gave me an idea. We should time it.
Oh, well, who knows if he could be running 38 yards. Seriously, or 439.
That's a very cynical approach.
That's the way I used to do it in college. I'd run the 38-yard dash and we'd call it 40. That's how I got under 5.5.